Hi, Cindy, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, Tamara?
I'm really well, really pleased to see your face. We'll leave the introductions there. I won't elaborate on how pleased I am to see you. I'm going to tell everybody why I've asked to speak to you, and you've kindly consented. I want to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, and I thought that we were talking about discussing terms that are being used increasingly now, moved away from conversations about vaccination, and people are really beginning to understand that there's a bigger plan at play here. I think that all of the terms that are being used are really, really important to fully comprehend. And I think that you do as much as it's possible to comprehend them. And so I would like to ask you if you would, share some of that knowledge with us. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a post that Cindy wrote today. Um, and just to give everybody an introduction to what we're talking about here. The fourth industrial revolution is a meticulously orchestrated future. It's not a natural evolution of humanity progressing from one age to another, springing from spontaneous innovation in technology. Despite revealing publications written by people who inform us of the shape, function, and direction of the world, a culture of spectacle keeps us ignorant by design. Why? Because if we knew the agenda, which demands physical isolation, surveillance of thought, and untrammeled control of our person in advance, we would simply revolt. Now, um, I find that very compelling, frightening. I didn't pop it up on the screen there. I should actually have popped it up while I was reading it, but that's okay. Anyway, so here we are. We are at the period of time in history where apparently we are referring to what's happening in the world, or what's going to happen in the world, as the fourth industrial revolution. So, Cindy, could you tell us a little context? How did we get here? What brought us to this point?
So, as as I've sort of mentioned in this post that I wrote today, um, how did we get here? Unfortunately, it's very much designed to look like we got here organically, as though technology, innovation, inventions, which sprang forth um, organically, grassroots things have come together to push the age along, to move us forward. We hear a lot about um, progress, making progress, and natural evolution, and this is a ruse, which one can evidence by looking at and reading these publications, these books, these memoirs written by people who are the movers and the shakers in the world, people that are tied into the economy in a way that we can't even really fathom. So I was looking last night at the previous industrial revolutions, and what was very, very interesting was their correlation in time with with the world wars, and and everything is usually clearer in hindsight. So, and somebody else came in and wrote on this post that I mentioned that, at the time nobody was calling the first industrial revolution the first, an industrial revolution. Nobody was calling the first world war as it was happening. All these things were named in retrospect,
Mm.
and it's I fear, I know that this is what's happening now. We have a war. We have an overt war, which you might cite what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. And we have We have a covert war happening at the same time, which looks like an energy crisis, which looks like a breakdown of the food chain and supply, or a pandemic, perhaps. So we have an attack on basically 7 billion people happening to move us into the next era, or the next epoch or age of humanity. And it's very deliberate. It is meticulously planned. The technology, where this technology has come from, is very insightful. It is militarized technology that is pushing us forward, and that we're moving into. So the previous age that we've just left, or that we're on the cusp of, or in the transition of moving from, was the information age. So that's what they were calling the last, I don't know, 20 years, was the information age. And interestingly enough, Wikipedia will tell you that the age we're moving into is the age of imagination. And if you start there, well, just let your imagination go wild. It's very, very interesting. So it's always very hard for me. I don't know where to start. Do I start at the end? Do I start at the end goal and work backwards? Or do we start at, at the first industrial revolution, or the industrial revolution that happened in the end of the 17th century to the first 3 decades of the 18th century? And so I've come up with a little analogy to start off with. My analogy is, previous to the first industrial revolution, we had farmers, we had small communities, people lived in villages and towns. They had their own animals, they had their own produce growing. Their lives were about survival, like it is today, but it looked very different. So you had your own chickens. You probably bartered with the cattle grazier or the dairy farmer. You had a one-on-one in-person connection with the people that produced the milk, the lettuce, the potatoes, the tanner who made shoes. This is how life was previous to the first industrial revolution, when industrial farming started. So we had, the steam engine, and propelling and changing the shape of living. So this one-on-one and knowing people that we had people started separating in a way. So they got closer to people in other towns. So they were able to, get on a steam engine and travel, or they were able to have things, commercial products, materials come from other lands. But what that meant is losing touch, not needing so much to have these relationships with the people in that immediate locality and that community. And then we had the second industrial revolution happen towards the end of, I think, the 1800s, and right up until the beginning of the First World War. And that was very much about steel and iron, mass-produced, obviously, steel and iron, and a rail network that connected far off places. And so it was much, again, we had people, so instead of now needing to go to, perhaps they could now go to the local store and get their needs met and have their good and get their goods and services and so forth. So we keep shifting. We become more globalized with every industrial revolution. And at the same time, what this means is that our immediate connection to the people that are around us become less and less important. So then we had, you know, the 20th century where, okay, there was an explosion of technology pretty much in every decade. Now, of course, we can cite, well, Wikipedia and, you know, the Britannica Encyclopedia. We'll put dates to things. But we had, you know, commercial air travel, people being able to move all around the world. Then we had the digital age with computers and so on and so forth. And we had mass production of food happen, whereby you didn't need to have any connection to, you didn't have to even know your neighbors anymore. We got to a point where our food is not, I'm going to milk the cow to get the milk, and then I'm going to get the eggs from the chickens, and I'm going to you know, pummel the flour, the wheat to make a cake. We went from that to, well, I can buy it in a box, mix it with water, put it in the oven, to I'm going to order it and it's going to come from Uber Eats. So we've totally lost connection with our dinner plate. So I'm only using this as an example because unfortunately, industrial revolution makes everybody think of just mechanical things and factories. And we don't really see that industrial revolutions, each time they happen, affect every single aspect of life. Work life, the economy, our relationships with people, our education, and anything and everything that you can imagine. So we've had this progression of technology, which seems it is good. It does have benefits, you know. Things become easier, more accessible to people. Some people always get left behind, of course. But this age of imagination that I'm coming to, we've gone from those organic, raw food products, these ingredients, to, well, this cake, if you look at the packet, doesn't even have eggs in it anymore. They're synthesizing glues and things to make this. We're eating things we've never eaten before, things we wouldn't even consider food products, to the age of imagination, where that cake that you'll be eating will actually be a figment of one's imagination through the manipulation of our brain. So with the fusing of technology and biology, as Klaus Schwab explains to us, which is part of the fourth industrial revolution, and the simulation that we will be living in, called the metaverse, we're going to get to a point where we will be, our brain will be stimulated and manipulated into thinking we are eating a cake. And so I think that might be an okay analogy, if I could have worded it better.
Worded it perfectly. Do you know, really actually quite near to tears.
Yeah.
You know, how much more could we be disconnected, you know? And what you're saying, we know, but, you know, when you hear it, you know, articulated, you know, in a you know, all cohesive sense, you know, we are all very, very, very lonely, one way or another, because we have lost everything that you've spoken of. The idea that, you know, it's going to be taken another step, you know, to the point where nothing's real anymore, not even a birthday cake. I mean, So that's why we're talking about this, because we want people to understand that this is, you know, this is where it ends up if everybody doesn't stand up. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Didn't expect to get so emotional. So we'll go back, and this is very interesting to me. The age of imagination, or what? No, 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 it's not even the age of imagination. It is, what are they calling it? Let me just get it right. The fourth industrial revolution is the imagination age, right? Okay. So uh I would like it if you could explain a little bit better to me. Oh, sorry, I've lost myself. Give me 2 seconds. There I am, I'm back. If you could spend a little bit better to all of us. So how does this digital cake come about? You know, how what is the shift? What are we gonna see here going on so that we can spot it? So how can we spot this? Because the better we can identify it, the better maybe we can take it apart.
So each progressive revolution, which is what we call it in hindsight, has us getting further and further away from our friends and family and food producers, and but it gave us the telephone so we could connect with people that were overseas or abroad or down the street. We got to the point where you and I, Tamora, can have this conversation though you are on the other side of the globe, and that is no small thing, and it's beautiful. However, this shifting away and getting away from people, sorry, I'll backtrack. So we got to a point where I could get on an aeroplane and probably be with you within 24 hours. And so that was probably the most magnificent part of globalization. And it was the thing that we took, it was the carrot that we held on to, and we loved, and I loved personally, that I could learn about other cultures, not through reading a book and not going on the internet, but I could immerse myself in the experience of, visiting Africa or Asia or my, where my parents come from. And this was amazing. So we may have lost the connection to the people around us, but we did have this, very, very amazing opportunity to be able to roam the globe. And unfortunately, that globalization and that aspect of globalization is also moving into that next level, where the globalists, let's call them that, have decided, well, you can do that in your imagination as well. So we've started off with Zoom calls, and video conferencing and telephone calls, but we're going to switch off the other options. It's not like these industrial revolutions bring more to the table and give us more options. They replace what we had before, and we are about to lose our. They're shutting down the airports basically, and this is documented in a PDF file called Absolute Zero, and it is it's from the United Kingdom. FIRES, fires.uk, Absolute Zero, and that is a calendar which gives us our deadlines for when things will be closed and shut off. It tells us when we won't be able to get meat products such as beef and lamb, and so this, it's so sad, the isolation. People reflect on, okay, prior to the first industrial revolution, people were isolated in their little villages. That's all they knew. That's where they were born, and that's where they died. and they only knew the people of that place, and a foreigner would be looked at quite with a lot of suspicion. And so we've come a long, long way from there to a point where we do not know our neighbours, but I know you pretty well. And but I'm about to lose. Well, yeah, for a couple of years there, I had totally lost my access to come and visit you, Tamora. There is a small window of opportunity that I could perhaps come now, but I'm afraid to do so because I'm not sure if I'm going to get stuck somewhere in the middle. I don't know what kind of lockdowns or what kind of measures will come about from whichever new pandemic they're going to dream up of. And so I'm pretty much stuck here, but I have no connection to my food producers or my neighbors. I pretty much already live most of my life in the metaverse, which is really unfortunate. So I feel quite qualified to speak about how lonely it is and how isolating it is not to have real contact. And that real contact I define as having long-term relationships with people who have gone through bad times with me and good times with me, because that's what really binds us together, I think. It's not just some celebrations or some interesting conversations. When I think people, when they live in villages, they don't have these first world problems that we talk about. That I have these sorts of ideas about veganism, or I have these sorts of ideas about racial color or gender, or whatever they throw at us, because we live in one place. We have the same trouble depending on the weather, whether we got good crops that year or not. If there's a woman in the village that's pregnant, all the women will go there and help her. These are the things that create solid bonds between people. And
Also, I
that's
think when you live for a prolonged period of time within a community and you're actually interacting with that community regularly, or you grow up with it, you have the opportunity, you make mistakes, and so do other people. And those mistakes are forgiven. And so you grow with those people. You are forgiven some of your mistakes, and you forgive them some of their mistakes. People go, they say the wrong thing, or they make the wrong choice. That say they're at the farm market and they overcharge somebody, and and everybody's sort of gossiping about them for a while, but they come back the next season and they offer somebody something. Somebody's down on their luck, they leave a bag at their door of stuff that they need, and that's them. They've retrieved themselves. And so I think that just what you were saying there, that passage of time, it's the highs, it's the lows, it's getting it right and it's getting it wrong, and that's cohesiveness. It's not just the good.
Yes, it's the dependency, the interdependency that we have on real people, which has been supplanted by dependency on the state and corporations and public-private partnerships that we find ourselves in now. There is no, anyone who has issues at the moment, or people who need to claim welfare benefits, what they actually get is an application on their phone that they need to navigate, and it's basically just yes or no answers. There is no discretion, there's no humanity, there's just there's no concern, there's nothing humane left anymore. We're dealing just with robots, we're dealing just with computer programs, and this is very, very isolating. You have no one you can go to. And because we have become, so reliant on our careers and our jobs, like the way to survival at the moment is that you have enough money from your income to put, shelter over your head and to have heating and to have food on the table. And that has nothing to do with your family. It has nothing to do with your friends. Your friends and your family are basically irrespective to all that. And thus we've lost even our friends and family. They don't have to be important because they don't depend on you and you don't depend on them. And this has torn us apart, because it's really easy if we disagree on a topic for me to say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Like, it was nice knowing you. Ciao.
Yeah.
Because, the only people that can, or the only organizations that can help me now is, the welfare or the charity or my employer. And we're not slaves. We've become dependent, and because we are so heavily dependent on survival to these perfect strangers or algorithms or computers, we've lost ourselves, Tamara. We don't know what to do anymore. And the thing is, the next stage is going to be so much worse. In fact, they've forecast how isolating it will be for people to be. So what's going to be isolating? I suppose we should talk about that. What's going to be isolating is that we will be learning and working and socializing and shopping from home. So people will basically be at home all the time, alone, having their needs met through through the internet. Basically, that's what the metaverse is, and this is what the Davos meetings this year, which is the World Economic Forum, the top 1,000 corporations, the most profitable corporations get together and set out the plans and designs for the next few years. And it was all pretty much about living in the metaverse, basically living in an online replica of real life, an online replica that, even if you want to visit an art gallery, well, you can do it at home. You can do it through an online platform. You can wear Oculus goggles and do that too. Sorry, you want to say
What
something?
is their purpose, Cindy, in wanting to keep us all isolated and at home? What is the breaking down of the social bonds? Because even when you hear people talking about it, Yuval Harari and things, they're not dwelling on, oh my goodness, you're going to be home with your family, and aren't you going to play all these wonderful board games and play pretend and spend all your time together, and it's really going to grow the family unit. That's not something that is being said. What's being said, he talks about how the problem of the future is how they're going to pacify people with computer games and narcotics, and so it's not even seen or even shared as a kind of utopia in that respect. Well, maybe it is, maybe more of the WEF stuff trying to get you to say you'll have nothing and you'll be happy. Maybe when you read more into that, they say that it's because you're going to spend all this time with family. But I think we can see from what you've described, and from what we know, we live what is now, and people will tell you they're lonely. It's not uncommon, it's very common. Everybody knows that they're lonely. People talk about it when they do get a chance to see each other quite a bit. So what is the purpose? Why do they want to pacify us? Is this money-making opportunity, or what's going on?
I think that's the hardest question of all, the why. And the only direction that I can find from the proper official sources and from what is talked about in the mainstream media is overpopulation and overconsumption. And because of this overpopulation and overconsumption, and we can talk about that at length too. Because of that, and because we're using too many of the Earth's resources, well, now we shouldn't. Now we must atone.
Mm.
And the best way to do that is if we all stay home. And to get us to this point, to get us into this metaverse and this isolation, the only way it can really actually be done is by restructuring the economic system, the finance, how we trade, how we transact, and therefore we have this economic collapse which is starting to bear its teeth now. So, is there a good, I'm not sure if that's a fulfilling answer or satisfactory, but that is what is being openly talked about, that there are too many people on this planet, we're using too much, and so we need to switch things around. And what we're going from is that capitalistic, shareholder capitalism, which is very much based on, well, taking resources, making cheap and nasty products, so that we can sell the maximum amount of it, and keep making maximum amounts, so people keep buying and keep consuming, because the whole model is predicated on growth. Because it's a debt-based system, we need to keep growing. So now that's for somebody who is well versed in finance and economics to explain, or there are some excellent resources to understand the debt-based fiat currency situation we find out that we've been using for the last, I'm not sure how many hundreds of years. No, it's not even hundreds. It's been a fiat currency, meaning a pretend currency plucked out of thin air. There's nothing backing that actual money. It's not worth this much in gold somewhere. Like, there is no gold. We're just writing numbers in a computer. I really shouldn't trail off like that.
It's okay. There is no gold.
So we've got that model gave us the freedom and liberty to save our money and to make choices. So money gave us access, whether it gave you access to education, or it gave you access to good medicine, or it gave you access to holidays, or good, nice clothing, or cool cars, or whatever. Now, to curb that consumption, well, you can't have money anymore, because you might stash it, you might store it, you might, do without for a long time, so that you can go on a holiday and create all that carbon, and deplete the planet of even more resources. Therefore, the whole economic system is being changed. It is being imploded, collapsed on purpose. It's deliberate, and it is being replaced by a new kind of currency. And that is not a new kind of, it may sound like we're changing, we're going from, paper money, physical money, to just digital money. That's what it looks like now, right this minute, but that is not the end goal. That will just be the transition period to make it easy for us, and so that we don't, realize what's happening until it's happened. So we will have that transition where, basically it's not going to be much different. People use their cards anyway. They hardly handle physical cash anymore. But the cash is going to be abolished, and in its place, we will have the currency of our behavior. So instead of having, like, my bank account, instead of saying bank account and money, it will be basically a social credit rating of my compliance, my attitudes, my thoughts even. And the better person I am, according to these parameters, pretty much laid out by the United Nations, called the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So the better citizen I am, painted in that light, the more access I will have to goods and services. However, these goods and services, it gets even more interesting now. It's not like I'll have, just more petrol to burn, or more food, because we're being transitioned into a circular economy, and this circular economy is totally replacing the current financial system, and the whole paradigm of what we understand money to be and what it can buy us. So where we have this model predicated on growing, more, make more, consume more, buy more, spend more. Well, all that is being transitioned into the metaverse. So it's going to be imaginary stuff that we buy, things like virtual clothing for our avatar, and virtual holidays whilst we sit at home. So we've still got that model happening under the banner of stakeholder capitalism. So there's definitely capitalism still here. We're still growing something and buying and purchasing and consuming. But in the real world, that won't exist anymore. In the real world, we'll have what's called the circular economy, which basically means that companies will produce goods and services and materials and all of those things. But instead of making them cheap and nasty so that you need to keep buying them, they've now decided it's a good idea to make those things durable, and to have a very long lifespan. There's so much you can say to that. And instead of us buying things and owning these things, these products will be owned by the companies that produce them, and they will be rented to us, or we will be subscribers to these products and services. For example, I don't know if it's called ride share or something like that. It's a company that has cars, and basically you just sort of like use it when you need it. You pick it up from somewhere, drop it off somewhere, or drop it off wherever you're going. It gets parked, and the next person who needs a car, needs a ride, or wants to drive themselves, uses it like that. And this is how our homes will be. This is how they're even saying our clothes will be this way. We will actually rent the clothes that we wear. And the companies that make our apparel they'll have incentive to make good products that last a long time, and they will repair all these products because we are renting them, and they can be reused, and so on and so forth. And the way that we're going to, this is going to be tracked, and how we're going to be charged for, did we wear those shoes today or not, is that they will have chips inside them and sensors, so that they can relay information back to the company, saying Cindy wore those shoes today and she wore them for 3 hours. She used that car today. She watched something on Netflix. So we've already got a taste of what this feels like. Airbnb, Uber Eats, and all these kinds of companies that we now subscribe. We don't purchase the book anymore. We read it on Kindle. This is going to get far more immersive. It's going to be everything, and so underneath all that is the principle of no property. Basically, private individuals will not have private property anymore. We will have X amount of resources. Everybody must share, and depending on their behavior and their attitudes, well, then that will equate to their access. So I think we're going from a time where there's already plenty of inequality, plenty of scarcity, plenty of people living below the poverty line, where there are still some little loopholes and ways that they can get around things, to a place where there'll be no getting around these things, Tamara.
I mean, it was inevitably going to be a bit sad to talk about this. I don't think I realized how sad it was going to be. I think that's what you do with this, and that's probably why it's important to talk about it. Is that when you hold it away as a concept or something that's written somebody's written some nice sentences about it, and you don't let it touch you, you you think of it as an abstract thing that that yes, you realize it's going to occur, it's in the process of occurring, you're aware of it in your own life at the moment, but you try to put a wall between yourself and what's happening, and you try to excuse yourself. You're going to use your Kindle, you're going to read, you're going to, and you're going to subscribe to Netflix, you're going to, and you excuse yourself because for one reason or another your life is lonely, or for one reason or another it makes it easier for you because it's become so hard to do it the alternative way, or because so for instance, Kindles, I have a book on the go all the time, and I have somebody who very kindly goes through book options for me, and buys them for me and downloads them to my Kindle, so that there is absolutely no time when I go to my Kindle where there isn't something quality of interest to me that I can find. And I and so in my own way, in doing that, that greed for the comfort that a book at the end of the day gives me, I contribute to the loss of the world, as it were, for my children. And we're all doing that slowly, but the thing is, how can we, or what, do you think it is haltable? We all have to become aware of it like this, like to the point where you are sort of really allow it to touch you, what's going on. But then once you're aware of it, is this can we halt this progression? I mean, we know that, like you said, the documents are there. They want to shut down the airports. We've been given all the carrots. Everyone's taken all the carrots, the international travel, so on and so forth. They're now going to take away the carrots, and we're going to have less than what we had in the first place, because now we sacrificed the relationship for the international travel. That we sacrificed everything that we had in real time for these tokens. Now they're going to take away the tokens. So what do we? Yeah, is it haltable?
This is what really gets me down. I think it's not going to be haltable because all of the smoke and mirrors that have been put in place and daily get thrown at us, these smoke bombs, and these bruises, that spectacle that I refer to, the sensational, and things that incite rage in us, are so good, so well engineered. They know us so well, Tamara. They know what grabs our attention. They've manipulated us into being distracted and finding things to argue about. And I see it even on my own page, amongst friends, people who in spirit are with me. They're on the same page. They're, they want their freedom. They want an end to this war. They don't want, because, fourth industrial revolution and war, basically, these are interchangeable terms with the Great Reset, with Build Back Better, they're all the same thing. Agenda 2030, doesn't matter what you call it. The point is, this reset, and that's probably the best word for it, because when you reset something, you zero everything. You take everything back to zero, you demolish everything, and you start again. The people that are on the same page, we find, amongst each other, things to argue about to a point where we block each other, and we don't want to talk anymore, because, this is the most important thing, or that's the most important thing, or Cindy, give us the solution, or if you're just going to complain, well, then why are we listening to you? I've never declared myself to be a leader. The only thing I call myself is an interpreter. I try to be an interpreter. I try to take the mumbo jumbo of terminology, of things like circular economy, and stakeholder capitalism, and social emotional learning, and forgive me, smart cities, digital twinning. I try to take that and make it digestible in a way where somebody like myself, somebody who works, or somebody who's working, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and trying to raise 2 children, and doing the best they can to get by, and that person does not have time to sit and read, or pay attention, or look for information, or somebody who doesn't have the appetite to do it like I do. I'm trying to tell them how their lives will be affected. I'm trying to make them understand how their lives have already been affected. And I'm not talking about just 2020 to 22. I try to explain how we got here. How did we get to this point where we hate each other, where we don't talk to our own families, where we don't talk to our friends anymore? How did we get to a point where the phone in our hand is preferable to the person that's sitting next to us?
And we're very
And
ill-equipped as well. Like, if you think about the relationships with children, how did we get to a point where, we're a lot of parents will describe to you, you do a lot of fending off, to try and get you time. You try to create activities that you would like to walk away from, so that you can be yourself and they can, they can play. In that same way, it's the same as the adult relationships. All of our relationships, we really struggle. We don't know how to do it anymore. We don't know how to forgive. We don't know how to not make, whether we win the intellectual debate or whether our point is considered by the majority to be the more compelling. We prize that. We've been trained to be competitive. We prize winning more than we prize the longevity of our relationships, and it's tragic.
Yeah. We're so I think what I was trying to say is, because I lose myself in my own thoughts, right? Is that the people that are on Team Human or Team Resistance,
Go
or
team.
team, with whatever team you want to call us, or people that are stuck in the paradigms of the epoch of the third industrial revolution, and nobody's saying that things were glorious in this, in that progression, or that it didn't have so many problems that needed to be corrected. Unfortunately, a lot of people come and get angry about that, when I say, well, these lithium batteries are of these renewable resource, greenwashing is what we're getting. We're getting, electric cars are better, and, LED lights are better, and And so people come in and say, well, petrol wasn't very good and the oil wasn't very good. And then there's free energy, Cindy. Why don't you talk about free energy? And it's like, well, hang on a second. We need to get the majority on one page. We need a point of focus. I think there are enough of us in this world, Tamara, that understand that things are terribly wrong and we need them to turn right. Even the people that have never heard of the fourth industrial revolution, 1 in 2 Australians are on psychotropic drugs. I don't know the percentage in America. I think like 1 in 3 children in America is chronically sick. That means people have these real problems. And if only they knew, that they were by design, if only they knew they were being given, flashcards and directions and being corralled into this argument and that argument, and we can't get together and make, make an arrowhead, with one point. Instead, we've all got these little arrows and we're just throwing them aimlessly around. And today I was listening to a broadcaster in America. Again, I think the thing that gets me down the most is the American red versus blue, Democrat versus Republican thing. I know neither of us are there, and it may seem uninteresting to somebody in the UK, in Scotland, or in Australia for me to talk about this, but I honestly believe that America is really important in this.
Yeah.
And the Americans are really important and have been sent down the wrong path. They keep throwing those false flags and those ruses, and they're still talking about some insurrection that happened in January, and they're arguing about the guns. They're never going to take their guns. They don't need to take their guns. Those smart cities have already been erected. They've already got the prison around them, and amongst themselves, they're talking about, local politics, state politics, national politics, the left and the right, and the left and the right. And I was watching, I watched that documentary called What is a Woman? I don't know if you've encountered it yet.
I haven't watched it. I saw people refer to it. I think I would find it very hard.
You will find it very hard to watch. It gets your temper flaring. It makes you very, very sad. It will touch upon all of your emotions, which is exactly what it's designed to do. It is this division, we are losing because we're divided, and every day they're going to give us one more thing to be divided about. I've got people who even ask me about my diet. I've got, other truthers who think it's important that I eat the same things that they do for us to be on the same team. That's worth crying about.
I think you see a lot of it, and it's an opportunity for me to sort of say thank you, because it's been on my mind lately, actually, a similar thing. There's a lot of taking down of people who've tried to have a voice variously at the moment, whether whether it's saying, I don't even want to mention names, that's how bad it is, we're saying that this person, actually has these motivations, or that this person, if you look back and you go through the annals of history, they once said this, so therefore they're contradictory, and the fact that they contradict themselves means that nothing that they say has any value. And that kind of thinking is just, it's hopeless, it's useless, it gets us nowhere. There is not a single person that you can look at, and I very much include myself in this, and please don't look, I don't want you to. There's nobody whose past doesn't turn, if you hold their past up to the light, then they do become they become inconsistent, because we are multifaceted, because we are human, because when we're talking about one thing, we bring certain things to the light, and when we're talking about another thing, also we grow and we change and we learn. And this business of, pulling down people who are essentially just, nice people trying to help, that I kind of see. I don't really see you as a truther or as a person, who's purposefully trying to get people on side or leave people, or I just see you as an intelligent woman who wants to share her perspective because she's frightened that if we don't, if she's right, then she's really frightened about what's going to happen. So could you please, see if you agree, and let's talk about, whether this is actually, I don't, and I see for a lot of people, that is what they're doing. They're trying to bring what they understand to the table in the hopes that it will enlighten us and we can grow and we can make things better and save things. So you're absolutely right. It is time for people to drop it. It doesn't matter what other people, we can't chase everybody down to make, this version. That there is no perfect. There is just, are we going to end up eating, imaginary cake, or are we going to keep the birthday cake on the table? And it doesn't have to be, we don't have to be on the page about any more, too much more in common than that. I'm sorry that you sustain attacks. I'm sure you do regularly actually sustain attacks. I'm glad that you keep going. And I'll bring us back now, having taken us away. It strikes me from what you're saying that the government so easily could have decided 50 years ago that we were going to have a policy of everybody learning how to farm their own little allotment in their back garden. Governments could easily have a different policy from the policy that they've decided to enact. This doesn't actually have to be happening. There is enough land, even if it were true that our resources were limited and the way that we were living was unsustainable. There are other answers other than to disappear into the digital sphere. It's not a fait accompli. It's not inevitable. It's, how did that become the case? They're selling it to people that this is the only way that we can go. It's not. We don't have to go that way.
No. Did we have to, I mean, do we have to enter the metaverse for companies and manufacturers to make durable, long-lasting things without built-in obsolescence? Like, this is not a regulatory thing they could have imposed on companies. Instead, they let them get away with selling whatever, polluting, the agricultural lands and all the soil with all that glyphosate. Like, this is the hypocrisy, that we're going to be punished for those companies, making the cheapest and dirtiest things and selling a lot of it, a lot of landfill. I'm going to be punished for having to repurchase the globes that no longer work, blow up for some reason after 2 weeks worth of use, for a refrigerator that lasted only 2 years. But those companies are going to be rewarded now with, well, they'll continue to turn these massive profits. I won't be able to own anything. I'll just be surveilled. I'll get to use it if I say the right thing. If I don't pull faces when I see government ads, this is what is so horrendous.
Yes, absolutely. And this surveillance business, let's touch on this slightly, because I think this is something that people don't fully comprehend, the extent to which they want to mine data about people. And presumably the mining of data is to make it so that it is more possible to rent us things, more possible to anticipate what we're going to want to rent. Why are they so fascinated in um how we behave?
Well, don't forget, it's the new economic system, the how we behave.
Uh-huh.
And so we need all that surveillance so that we can have an accurate ledger. Just like you expect your bank account to be accurate to the cent
Mhm.
of, what you got paid and what you spent. Well, they need to have an accurate, you know, a verbatim copy, a digital replica of our everyday and every waking moment, and even our sleeping moments, um, of what we thought and what we did in order to reward and punish us. But at the same time, part of that capitalistic model, the growth part where investors get to make lots of money or
Mhm.
wealth,
Mhm.
um, well, the resource for that is data. So we've been hearing this expression of data is the new oil bandied about a lot.
Mhm.
And so, what is it that they can trade? What is it, that they can hedge bets on? Well, it's data. And that data, the most interesting data comes from humans. That's
Mhm.
where most data can be accrued. I mean, there's data about everything. I can put sensors on the pot plants over here,
Mhm.
and that has data in it. It changes. It changes depending on where the light is, or if there is light, or if I water it or not, or what the temperature is. There's data coming from there, but it's not so interesting. It's not like humans. Humans are, the most intelligent beings, or perhaps after dolphins, I don't know, we're intelligent. We do stuff. We are considered human capital now. So there's another buzzword for you. Human capital. We are a resource to be mined. So this surveillance has so many facets to it. Firstly, it's something that we can be monitored with, so that well, we can see, how good of, a citizen we are. Then there's the other side of it of, well, we can extract a whole lot of data, so we can trade it on the stock market. And there are very interesting ways to do that. It's something called social impact finance, or social impact bonds, or social impact investment. So we've got, three terms all describing the same thing. Which is, what is that? That is, okay, impact. So that means shaping, changing the trajectory of something. And the best way to do that is to predict. So pretty much everything's going to be based on prediction. We'll predict the weather. If we get the weather right, then we'll pay ourselves a sum. It's a gamble. It's like a football match. Money is made on the prediction of, not just how many goals will be scored,
Mhm.
which quarter they'll be scored in, which player will score it.
Mhm.
If you think in terms of humans, there are so many variables that we can work with. So basically, investors will be hedging bets on populations, on groups, not so much individuals, more so groups, of they'll start with the vulnerable, because that's where people want to see impact. When there's a problem somewhere to be fixed, or even better, one that you predict, on evidence-based science and statistics, that there's going to be a problem with this subset of children, for example, according to their DNA screening, and according to their parents' language, use, which we collected from the sensors in the house as we heard them talking to the children. And based on the biometric readings of that child, because on its nappies, on its diaper, it's got sensors there, and it has a smart dummy or pacifier in its mouth. So we've got all this information coming in, and based on that information, and based on tracking its eyes when it was looking at that tablet, so that is a lot of information that algorithms work with. So it's not people sitting there, making these predictions, it's algorithms. So based on all that information, we forecast, we predict that these children will have dyslexia, or they'll have high cholesterol, or they'll be obese, or they'll have sugar issues, or they'll have reading problems, or attention deficit disorders. And so what we'll do is we'll put them on a pathway, and this pathway is basically another digital platform, another application that the child, goes through a game. That's what it looks like on the outside. It's a learning game. And from there, we will track and monitor outcomes. So we will say that we've put this sort of learning component into it, or this, therapeutic value. And at the end, we will assess if we, circumvented the cholesterol, or the ADHD, or the whatever it happens to be, attitude problem, whatever. And think about how much more data is going to come out of that application. And so basically we'll have these companies hedging these bets, these, financiers making money mostly off vulnerable people.
It sounds like
Clearly
experimenting on children, experimenting on humans, so you're saying, okay, according to our sensors, blah, so we're going to change X input, and then we're going to see what the outcome is. Well, by anybody else's definition, that's an experiment. Experimenting on children. Sorry, it just really, really upset me there, this idea of, this poor baby, somebody preempting, yes, of course, to some degree we anticipate the future based on a child's behavior, but we also all know intuitively that, you need to just leave children, give them time to grow, and lots and lots and lots of things that feel like they're a problem will resolve themselves. And a lot of the things that we say are children's problems are in fact problems with the environment around them, or problems with the way that the adults around them are behaving. So I mean, the idea that we already know that we're making terrible mistakes in that regard, and we should be taking that apart further, and building space around children, building safety around children, making them inviolable. Again, the idea that we're just going to let people in, and they're going to, like you said there, for the sake of, for fun, for money, for gambling, and we predict. And I mean, and then also to say, oh well, we circumvented the outcome. Well, you predicted the outcome. You didn't. The outcome there it was never tangible. So now you get to say that you circumvented it. So that's just you just make stuff up. I don't know. I know that's that's it's just then you're free. You're at liberty to just. It's horrible.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes. It's horrible, because it preys on vulnerable people who won't have options, because if the child doesn't go onto that pathway, then the algorithms will leave that child behind. And we've got this no child left behind that we hear about. The parents won't get the same, or the child won't have the same access to learning opportunities. That's how these carrots and sticks will work. If and everything works with threats, just like we've seen with COVID. If you don't take this preventative medicine, well, then you won't be able to travel or eat at a restaurant. You won't be able to do this or that. So this is exactly the blueprint that we will see, but it will be completely digitalized. It will be automated. You won't even be able to complain to a person about these things anymore. And one other aspect of the data and the surveillance, which is very, very important to mention, is so whilst all this is happening with the surveillance data, and by the way, Shoshana Zuboff, her name is, she's a Harvard professor, and she has lots of titles, and she's written a book called Surveillance Capitalism. So before they called it stakeholder capitalism, it was called, she had named it surveillance capitalism. So this is making money off surveillance, and that's not a nice, clear terminology that we understand a lot better than stakeholder capitalism, which is like, your guess is as good as mine who the stakeholders are, and they'll tell you that everybody, the stakeholder is that child. I don't think so. So the other part of data, which is, would be totally remiss not to talk about, is that we're moving into, automation, where, like the other industrial revolutions, automation became more automated. Each time it got more automated. At the beginning, we needed people on a production line that were, using the machinery. Then the machinery became more automated, where somebody only had to press a button or operate it through a computer. And now we're moving into an era of, well, the computers, they talk to each other, the machines talk to each other. And even if the machine doesn't know what to do, it can reach out through cloud computing and ask an algorithm to find help from another algorithm. So we're talking about machines talking to each other and completely bypassing humanity. And how do we get to the point where humans become obsolete? So we get to that point with machine learning, and machines learn when we use them, because in the background of the game that the child is playing, in the background of the learning application that that child is using, there's, natural language processing going on. There's all, the machine is learning from the child. It's probably learning a whole lot more from the child than the child is learning by playing that game. And so we are effectively going to make ourselves so obsolete, and because each industrial revolution did the same thing. The farmers who are using the hand tools, and the crafts people who, the handy people who were making things with their hands and sewing, and then all of a sudden we had big machines doing it, and then we had bigger machines doing it. These people lost their jobs and they complained. They were called Luddites back then, because they were losing their livelihood. They were losing how they would survive. And this keeps happening. And now it seems like we're right at the end of that road. We're right at the end of that road where we don't need to push the buttons anymore. We don't need to make any kind of decisions anymore. Instead of telling the robots and the computers what to do, they'll be telling us what to do. And we come back to that, imagine, the era of, or the age of imagination, or the
Exactly
imagination
what I was
age.
thinking about, the imagination age.
Can you read out that first part, please?
Absolutely. Hold on. Right, so I'm screen share, and then I'm going to go here, and let's just hope that I've done it right. Bear with us. Right. In essence, the fourth industrial revolution is the trend towards automation and data exchange and manufacturing technologies and processes, which include cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things, cloud computing, cognitive computing, and artificial intelligence. The fourth industrial revolution marks the beginning of the imagination age. The imagination age is the period beyond the information age, where creativity and imagination become the primary creators of economic value. As in contrast, the main activities of the information age are analysis and thinking. This concept holds that technologies like virtual reality and user-created content will change the way humans interact with each other and create economic and social structures. A key concept is that the rise of an immersive virtual reality, the metaverse or cyberspace, will raise the value of imagination work done by designers, artists, etc., over rational thinking as a foundation of culture and economics. So we're going to raise the value of imagination work over the value of rational thinking.
Which is in and of itself worthy of somebody sitting down and grappling with. But let's go to that part where it says the metaverse or cyberspace will raise the value of imagination work done by designers and artists, etc. How many people can live off designers and artists? I wish to know. Like, this is where we're being lied to regarding the definition of imagination work, because this here presumes that the person is outputting some kind of creativity and is being rewarded for it. Whereas imagination work is our minds being manipulated, our brains being stimulated, we living in a virtual reality online replica. And the processes, the natural processes of our brains actually being the value, you know, the changes in our heart rhythms would be one thing, the emotions that we express when we see a picture or whatever. This will be the data that is lifted and extracted, and the imagination part is that we will be living in our heads entirely. We won't just be isolated to a house. We won't just be isolated physically from people. We'll even be isolated from the room we're in. I will have these Oculus goggles and we'll have these, you know, earphones, and we will be living in our heads. This is what imagination work means. We will be put to task, isolated even from ourselves. I just don't. Sometimes
it's harsh. It's a really, really, it's so much harder than I thought it was going to be to listen to talk about. I think that what we'll do, we'll wrap it up there because I want people to listen. And I'd like to come back and talk more and listen more. I think maybe we should take a wee recovery from how hard it is actually. You know, this is, in a way, I don't know for you, but for me, it's a new level of just giving of yourself, because, you know, neither of us can control what happens. All we can do is sort of recognize with each other and hopefully with other people listening, you know, that this doesn't feel good. This conversation doesn't feel good. I don't want this to be our future. So let's sit with it, and let's let other people sit with it and feed us back, and let's see if we can build back from here. Build back better. You know, come back from here, because this is quite a low. It has to be done to look right at it. So thank you. It's something you're very good at. But I think that it costs you. I think that people don't realize that it does, that looking right at something, and look at the state of me, looking right at something costs, and you're always looking right at stuff, Cindy. And you are always, you're trying to strip away, all of the wording, and really just extrapolate as best you can what you think is the truth. And I'm so grateful that you do it. And I'm glad that if I've got to be here, then I'm really glad I'm here with you. So thank you.
It's not inevitable. That's the big lie, Tamara, that everyone's been, pretty much everyone bought this lie. We didn't buy all the lies, but pretty much everyone bought the lie of it's inevitable. And that's what they want us to believe. It is not inevitable. Just because you use a Kindle and just because I use a smartphone does not make this inevitable. It doesn't imply consent that I have a communication device and you have a reader. And you don't have to give up your reading, and I shouldn't have to give up my communication just because I don't want to enter the world of imagination. Okay? So
Thank you.
This is what I want people to understand. I want them to know that this is happening, and it is made possible by the infrastructure that has gone up on our streets and in our smart cities, and that it can be dismantled in just the same way that it went up. And I am not talking about any kind of vandalism. I am simply stating we can go back to 4G. We don't have to have this apparatus around us. We can have a more sustainable lifestyle. We don't have to build in obsolescence into everything we use. There are better ways, there are healthier ways, there are humane ways. We don't have to hand over, we don't have to abandon our humanity and just let machines take this earth. That's not the way it was intended.
I think you're right. And I hope you're right. I mean, certainly I'm inspired to go, and after I have a cup of tea, I'm inspired to go and sit with my children, bake a cake with my children. We do these things all the time, but to really realize, these things are, use it or lose it, and we need to get everybody to that point where we're sort of saying, okay, right, well, like you said there, keep your Kindle, keep your smartphone, but keep the other things that you do to make your life real and human, and in fact begin to build on those. And really, I mean, it's as easy as going outside and growing vegetables in a way, um it's and it's as hard as that as well, because it's so foreign to us, so foreign, like even to wait the length of time that it takes for a crop to grow. What do you do with yourself in between time? That these are the things we have to really face. And like you said about the distraction, we're all victims of having been brought up to be sort of overstimulation. Like our brain requires so much going in. In fact, we feel that if there is nothing going in, then then we're not good enough, we're not doing enough. There's like every way you look with that, there's there's problems. Or is the right thing going in? Are you reading the right stuff? Are you so we have to work out how to actually spend time just being. But I mean, none of this is rocket science. But on the other hand, apparently it is for all of us. Apparently we are so far from what it is to do these simple things that it's rocket science, and we need to learn it.
All those distractions and all that stimulus that we require, because I'm an addict to the stimulus of information, and I just need to be grappling with the ideas all the time. I'm pretty sure that that's because there's a vacuum inside me,
Yeah.
Tamara. Because
And we're
I
all
don't have a husband and I don't have children, and that's how it should have been, I don't have the real things in life. And so I have to occupy my mind to stop from going crazy or to stop from being depressed or anxious or other things. So I'm doing okay under the circumstances. But I'm not saying to people, please, send me messages of love or anything. And I don't want proposals through the internet, please. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest.
It's true, and I tell you, Cindy, when you have the children, and I mean, mine is by no manner of means, a fairy tale. I'm on my own with the children a lot, and I I struggle to bring myself into the present. It's a constant battle to bring myself into the present, to appreciate the things that they appreciate, to be able to stand and just, look at the flowers or look at the grass or make a mud pie or talk about, spells, to bring yourself to stuff which isn't information, which you've been conditioned to to see as sort of superfluous, or just stuff that it doesn't engage you. So it's very hard to stay there, and in fact you're losing your child's childhood every time you can't engage with the present. You miss a moment with them, and we're all suffering from that. All the people who are parents, they're 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 suffering, they're judging themselves, they're riddled with guilt. All of these things need to, or we have people in society who, who haven't gotten married or don't have children or don't have a partner. I don't have a partner. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. I agree with you. There's a vacuum. You don't have somebody. But and so you do what you can to get by. But I think even just there, the honesty there, both of us actually saying to each other, so, and knowing that other people will hear it. Oh, well, I don't have children, or I don't have a partner. That's something we've been conditioned not to do as well. So there you go, as an offering of emotional honesty and vulnerability to the world, to show everybody, that's how it's done. It hurts. Are you okay?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to leave you.
I'll be okay.
Okay, right, listen, what we'll do is we can turn it off and I'll meet you in the metaverse. And I'll check that you're all right, okay? All right, thank you so much, Cindy.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.